I'm sure you guys know how much I love The Last of Us games, and Naughty Dog is my favorite game developer. Naughty Dog also developed another one of my favorite game series, Uncharted. Uncharted series are action-adventure games created by Amy Hennig, starting with Uncharted Drake's Fortune, which came out in 2007 on the PS3, followed by 3 sequels. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves, a fan favorite which is regarded as one of the best games of all time, and Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception in 2011, and finally Uncharted 4, A Thief's End on the PS4 in 2016. This is the main series that follows Nathan Drake and his adventures across the world to uncover historical mysteries. A standalone game called Uncharted Lost Legacy was released in 2017 on the PS4 with Chloe Fraser, one of the supporting characters in Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, as the playable protagonist. In this video, I'm going to discuss Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy, two of my favorite games. I'm going to go over the story, the gameplay, music, everything for both games. Before I start, I think I should explain my history with this series. Well, my first encounter with Uncharted series was back in 2012. My brother was playing Uncharted 3 and I saw this. No, that's a cheap copy. I'm talking about this. And I was like, holy shit! It's an action movie where you are in control. Interactivity. I need to get this. I need to play this. So I got all 3 games and I loved every second of them. My favorite one was Uncharted 2 out of the trilogy. So now let's start with the video. The development of Uncharted 4 began in November 2011 with the series creator Amy Hennig and game director Justin Richmond leading it, until their departure from the company in March 2014. After that, Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley, the directors of The Last of Us, took over. It was initially reported by IGN that Amy Hennig forced out of Naughty Dog by Neil and Bruce. In 2020, a former IGN employee confirmed it was nothing but forced gossip. The weird part is that a lot of people still believe in that. Like, come on, how hard it is to do your own research instead of believing someone else on the internet. Every day I understand Metal Gear Solid 2 more and more.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
Echo chambers. Kojima, you have a time machine, don't you? Back to Uncharted. Sorry, I ramble a lot. Neil and Bruce had to scrap everything Amy made, and they faced great difficulty after Amy's departure due to more limited development time and significant story changes. Story changes like Sam's role in the story. In Amy's version, Sam was a villain and working with Rafe for the first half, and then they revealed that he is Nathan's brother, and then he turns around and starts helping Nathan. I'm glad we didn't get that. With the difficulty the team at Naughty Dog faced, the game was delayed a number of times, finally releasing on May 10th, 2016. Now that we know the amount of time, hard work and passion went into making this game, let's talk about the story of the game. If you are more interested in the gameplay section, you can find timestamps in the description. Stories in Uncharted games are not the series' strongest suit. Like, do you remember any story beats from the previous games? I most certainly don't. I mean, I do remember finding the U-boat in Uncharted 1, the opening from Uncharted 2, and the plane sequence from Uncharted 3, but I don't remember the story from any of these games. That's not to say the games are badly written. I really love the characters in those games and their interactions with each other.
Let's check it out, huh?
Yeah, wait. Something about this feels kinda hinky.
Hinky.
The dialogues are well written, but I do remember the story from Uncharted 4, and of course the entertaining interactions between the characters.
Well, we're back on the trail.
The footprints go this way.
Be ready for a fight.
Oh, I always am.
Wait, is that in reference to me?
No, would you calm down?
You calm down.
I adore the opening and Uncharted games. They always put you in the middle of the action. Like in the first game, you fight off a bunch of pirates, and of course who could forget the iconic opening sequence in Uncharted 2 and the bar fight in Uncharted 3. I also love the quotes, they really set the tone. Uncharted 4 is no exception. The game opens during a boat chase sequence. We see Nathan with a man we don't recognize, and there is shooting and explosions, Uncharted at its best. But as usual, things get out of hand. Then there is a flashback. We see a young Nathan scolded by a nun who is played by Merle Dandridge, who also played Marlene in Last of Us 1 and Last of Us Part 2 and in the upcoming TV show. I really like this flashback and opening sequence for two reasons. Number one, we see more of Nathan's past that was previously explored a little bit in Uncharted 3, and second reason, I'll discuss later in the video as it comes under level designing. We also come to know that the mysterious man from the prologue was Nathan's older brother. Nathan and Sam are orphans. Their mother died and their father dropped them off at an orphanage, went to get milk and never came back. Remember when I said that the nun was scolding Nathan at the start of the flashback? It was because Nathan got into a fight with another boy who stole his book and said some nasty things to him about his family. Understandably, he got mad and started throwing punches. I don't blame him at all. In fact, he should have snapped his neck. Anyways, as an older brother, Sam takes the responsibility of supporting his younger brother, which leads him to do some odd jobs. From what we have seen so far, Sam and Nathan have a typical sibling relationship that a lot of people can relate to. They bicker, they're both very adventurous. Sam tries to be the responsible older brother, but in the end, he's still a teenager. It is also very noticeable how much Nathan adores his older brother and looks up to him. Cute sibling relationship. They'll give each other a hard time but love and care for one another as well. Nathan also hates being in the orphanage, so when Sam tells him he has to go out of town for a year, he doesn't take it well. So to make him feel better, they both go on a little adventure to get their mother's stuff back. I'm pretty sure they're more attached to their mother than their father because he is an asshole. Then there's another flashback, this time 15 years before the events of the fourth game. Nathan and Sully are grown up and are looking for the treasure of pirate Henry Avery, who plundered a fortune during the 1695 Gunsway heist. In this flashback, we also meet the antagonist of the game, Rafe. And he is super hot, going to climb all over him.
Good stuff.
They are there to search for something that turns out to be a cross. Though it turns out to be hollow, it still leads them to Scotland. When the prison warden who aided them demands a cut, Rafe impulsively kills him.
Out of your goddamn mind? You want to find out?
Oh yes, I do want to find out. After that, they try to escape. Nathan and Rafe are successful, but Sam wasn't, as he was shot by guards and presumed dead. We then get an opening credits, which is very beautiful. We see Nathan has retired and settled into a peaceful life with Elena. Nathan struggles with a boring job, monotonous activities. It is evident that he misses the excitement from his old life. While working late night, Nathan gets a surprise visit by his not-so-dead brother. Before we go any further, we should talk about the elephant in the room. Sam is retconned in. For those who don't know what retcon means, A piece of new information that imposes a different interpretation on previously described events, typically used to facilitate a dramatic plot shift or account for an inconsistency. Like I mentioned earlier in the video that Nathan past was explored a little bit in Uncharted 3, Marlowe, the main antagonist in the game, did a whole ass background check on Nathan in order to blackmail him so he can give up Sully's location. Anyways, she mentions his mother, father, but not Sam.
Mother commits suicide. Father surrenders son to the state at the age of 5. Entrusted to the St. Francis Boys' Home. It's also Dickensian. Oh. Don't worry. She's of no interest to us. Unless, of course, we need to apply a little pressure.
What do you want from me?
Well, as much as it pains me to admit it, I need your help to find Victor Sullivan.
Right.
We already know he has the coordinates to find Iran.
He is never mentioned in any of the previous games. It is very weird when you realize that even Sully knew Sam, who he doesn't mention at all. Especially when you know that 20 years before the events of Uncharted 3, Sully meets Nathan, and 15 years before the events of Uncharted 4, Sam is presumed dead.
You remember my dead brother, right? Victor?
I'll be goddamned. 15 years.
Yep.
Good to see you alive, Sam.
Let's,
Sully obviously knew about Sam, yet never mentions him. Was it traumatic for Nathan? I don't know, man. He was joking about being in Panamanian jail right at the beginning of the first game.
Here.
What?
Yeah, so unless you want to end up in a Panamanian jail, we should probably handle this ourselves.
What's worse?
You obviously haven't been in a Panamanian jail. Do you know how to use one of these?
The performance in these games are great. Nolan North as Nathan, Emily Rose as Elena, Richard McGonigal as Sully. I still can't believe Mark Wahlberg plays him in the movie. I'm disgusted. Troy Baker as Sam, Laura Bailey as Nadine, Warren Cole as Rafe, also known as my husband. Sam being retconned in always bothered me, not because their chemistry was bad or whatever. To me, the idea that the main character had a brother who he or his closest friend never mentioned was far-fetched. That being said, I don't know if you guys know, Troy and Nolan are good friends in real life, or at least they were. So their chemistry bleeds into the game, which in turn saves it from being a disaster. Anyways, Sam is retconned in. Let's continue. So Sam actually didn't die. The doctors in prison patched him up and threw him back in the jail. There, he shares his cell with Hector Alcazar, a drug lord with whom he later escapes with. However, this comes with a price. Find Henry Avery's treasure or die. So he comes looking for Nathan to help him find the treasure. Nathan is very reluctant to help him because he promised to leave his old life behind, but he eventually agrees because he feels guilty. And then he lies to his wife.
Hey, hon, it's me. Yeah, listen, you're not gonna believe this. Jameson just walked in here with the permits. Yeah. I know.
What's up with Naughty Dog's main character lying to their loved ones? Remember that cross back in Panamanian jail? Turns out there is another one in Italy. So the brothers meet Sully, who helps them break into this illegal auction. This is where we meet Rafe and his partner Nadine, who runs a private mercenary group, Shoreline. Rafe is the best Uncharted villain, and I'm not saying it because he's my husband. I found Rafe's motivation to be more personal than I'm a big bad evil and I'm going to destroy the world. He genuinely hates Nathan, and come on, he's just fed up with being pampered and wants to do something on his own. But yeah, he's an asshole too. And good job, Naughty Dog and Laura Bailey, for pissing off Dude Bros twice. Once with Nadine and the other time with Abby, my baby.
Had me worried there for a minute, Victor. Thought I might have to kill you.
Okay, let's ruin this asshole's evening.
And they definitely did ruin his night. and Sully have a tense conversation. They know the same yet different Nathan. Sam knows the old Nathan, his younger brother, who's just as passionate as he is to find Henry Avery's treasure. While Sully knows and tolerated the same Nathan for years, but he has seen him grow and settle down with Elena after the shit they have been through.
You see a gun to his head? He chose this. Okay, he's meant for this life.
You really believe that?
Why are you here, Victor?
Because somebody's got to keep an eye out for him.
Unfortunately, Nathan continues lying to his wife, which disappoints Sully and us.
With all that you two have been through together,
She wouldn't understand this.
you are not giving her enough credit.
I can't take that chance.
A map inside the cross leads the brothers and Sully to St. Dismas Cathedral in the Scottish Highlands. There they discover a hidden temple and a map highlighting Kings Bay in Madagascar. In Kings Bay, some crazy shit happened. I'm going to just focus on the story beats because at the end this is a story section. I think that the things that happen here needs its own section. Anyways, the brothers and Sully learn that Avery, Thomas Tew, and 10 other pirate captains pooled their treasures. So they decide to separate in order to find the clues faster as they have competition. Following the clues to a tower in the city, Nathan and Sully uncovers a map to Libertalia, a fabled pirate utopia. The group returns to their hotel to find Elena waiting.
How's the Malaysia job going, Nate? Seems like you're a hair off course.
After the roller coaster that was Kings Bay, we along with the group are so happy. Naughty Dog just... Elena is obviously very heartbroken to discover that her husband, the man she fell in love with, the man she went through so much with, lied to her. And he doesn't even tell her about Sam.
Bye.
I'm sure Elena is contemplating everything she knows about Nathan. Does she know him at all?
There ever a Malaysia job?
Nathan is obviously heartbroken, but instead of going after her, he sends Sully after lashing out on him. The brothers follow the map to an island, the most boring chapter. During this chapter, Nathan is feeling remorseful over what happened with Sully and Elena, and now he just wants to get the treasure to save his brother's life. He has no interest in the treasure to get satisfaction.
I'll get excited when we get Alcazar's noose off your neck. Come on.
They finally discover Libertalia. On the way to the island, they are chased by Shoreline. Now we are back to the beginning of the game. The only difference is, now you know what the fuss is all about. After getting separated and finding their way back to each other, the brothers find evidence of a civil war. The founders, that is, all those pirates, stole the city's treasure and moved it across the island to New Devon. While they are on their way to New Devon, Shoreline ambushes them and Nadine proceeds to beat the shit out of them. Rafe and Shoreline soldiers cornered the brothers, who then reveals that he's the one who released Sam from jail 2 years ago. So the Alcazar story was full bullshit and Sam lied to his
Baby brother.
So Sam actually double-crossed Rafe to resume the search with Nathan. Deciding that he needs Sam, Rafe prepares to shoot Nathan. Sam shields him, but Nathan is knocked off a cliff and falls unconscious. Alright, can we talk about how unlikable Sam is here? Like, I won't say that he doesn't care or love about Nathan, because he does. The one thing that pisses me off is that he lies to Nathan, but he saw how Nathan was after Elena found them in Kings Bay, and he still didn't tell him the truth? Like, what the fuck?
I'm an asshole, right?
Elena rescues Nathan, who reveals his past. As teenagers, he and Sam discovered that their mother, a brilliant historian, was researching Libertalia. The boys, after nearly being caught by cops due to breaking into the house of the person associated with their mother, decided to start new lives by changing their surname to Drake to honor their mother's about Francis Drake's descendants. Nathan and Elena talk about their relationship. Elena asks him why did he shut her off like that.
No matter what it is, you're supposed to come to me so that we can work through it together as a team.
I know that. Really, I do.
And after that conversation is one of my favorite moments in the game. Just a short drive, which I wish was a long drive, when you enter New Devon with the beautiful score by Henry Jackman playing in the background. It's so relaxing for us, the player, but the conversation they had before weighs heavy on them and also the players. Why didn't Nathan go to Elena to talk about it? And after having a near-death experience, which isn't the first and won't be the last, Nathan tells Elena that he lied because he was afraid to lose her and was trying to protect himself.
I guess I was, protecting myself. You know?
In New Devon, Nathan and Elena learn that Libertalia descended into conflict over the treasure. tlou and Avery poisoned the other founders and absconded with the Horde. But tlou betrayed Avery. And Nathan loses it. He's so passionate about it, and she understands that he needs that adventure. It's a part of himself, something that they both have to accept.
It's incredible.
And then they have a very cute moment, and everything is okay between them. What the fuck? I personally believe lying to people and breaking their trust is not good, right? But portraying it as something you can just solve just by one conversation is frankly embarrassing, especially when you made Last of Us Part 2, which portrays the same thing in a more realistic way. When you break someone's trust, especially the one you love and care about, they have to go through this long process of contemplating everything you have ever told them. They feel betrayed. Believe me, speaking from experience. In order to gain that trust back, you have to work hard. You have to show them that you have changed and would never hurt them like that. Now, if they keep on doing it, it's obviously toxic, so...
Run, bitch! Run!
It's definitely a long road ahead, at least longer than one conversation. Moving on, Nathan and Elena and Sully rescue Sam and convince him to escape with them. Between the two brothers, at least, Nathan knows when to stop.
Actually, Sam, they do. They really do. Okay. Trust me, they've seen.
Sam is like old Nathan, so he decides to pursue the red treasure that he's obsessed with. Nathan is the kind of person that will never leave a man behind, especially not his brother. Following Sam's trail, Nathan finds Avery's treasure-laden ship. Having collected a large amount of treasure, Nadine refuses to risk more of Avery's traps, but Rafe coerces her by bribing her men. Aboard the ship, Sam triggers a trap, starting a fire and pinning him beneath the rubble. Nathan confronts Rafe and Nadine in the ship hold, where the skeletons of Avery and tlou lie, having killed each other over the treasure. Nadine betrays Rafe and leaves him with Nathan and Sam to die. Rafe challenges Nathan to a sword fight. Nathan drops a bundle of treasure on Rafe and killing him and frees Sam. The pair returns to Sully's plane and the group escapes. Sam and Sully team up for a new job while Nathan and Elena return home. Elena explains that Sam recovered some of the gold and gave it to her. Realizing that they both need adventure in their lives, she buys the salvage company for which Nathan worked, installing Nathan as the owner, and plans to revive her old exploration show. Years later, Nathan and Elena have become successful salvagers. After their teenage daughter Cassie discovers relics from their adventures, Nathan decides to tell their story. Pretty good story, I like it. It has some flaws like the pacing that I will discuss later, but it's very enjoyable. A story about love, friendship, greed, and trust. Story is done, let's talk about the gameplay. In this section, I'm going to talk about everything that is not the story. For example, the level design, music, and obviously the gameplay, etc. I played this game on the PS4 Pro, where it runs on 2K resolution and 30 FPS in single player, in the multiplayer 180p resolution and 60 FPS with HDR support for both. Visually, this game is breathtaking. Even after 6 years, there's still jaw-dropping moments like the mountain in Chapter 10. As an adventure game, Uncharted 4 surely takes the player to beautiful and different places. From the overcrowded ruins of a Panamanian jail, to the snowy rugged wilderness of Scotland, to the vibrant road trip of Madagascar, and finally to the Atlantis-like architectural theme park Utopia of Libertalia. The animations are much more fluid and realistic than the previous games. The character models look great, on par with some of the games from next generation consoles. The level of detail in this game is fantastic. For example, if you step on a bed, you will hear noise from the bed springs. If you shoot at the rocks, it will cause miniature rock slides. You can see Nathan holding his breath underwater. Nathan's watch is actually very detailed and so much more. However, the lighting looks a bit off at certain sections, especially at the tlou section. I don't know, it looks like it has too much saturation, but for the most part, it's beautiful. Music is scored by Henry Jackman. I absolutely love it. The soundtrack definitely makes you feel like you're in an action-adventure movie, with some melodious and relaxing songs like For Better or Worse. My favorite songs are Lord of Adventure, For Better or Worse, and Brother's Keeper. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. Sound design in this game is so much better than the previous games. Perhaps it's better to show you instead of describing it. When you shoot with an AK-47 in Uncharted 3, it sounds like this. And when you shoot with an AK-47 in Uncharted 4, it sounds like this. Snapping someone's neck is very satisfying to hear. Yo, I'm not a psycho, by the way. I love the transitions from gameplay to cutscene and vice versa, so seamless. It's pretty accessible too, not as much as Last of Us Part 2. This game has 5 difficulties: very easy, easy, normal, hard, and crushing. The brutal difficulty is not there in this game. After completing the game once, you can unlock a wide variety of modifiers, which ranges from audio, visual to gameplay. It's pretty fun playing the game with them. You can also unlock the ability to replay the chapters or encounters from the menu, though When you complete an encounter, it doesn't give you an option to continue to the next encounter. It just gives you two options: restart encounter or quit. Pretty stupid. You know which game does not do that? A masterpiece. That's about it. Now let's dive into the gameplay. Uncharted series never had complex gameplay systems. Uncharted 4 continues this tradition, though it introduces a few new things. Also, just because a game has simple gameplay, it doesn't mean it's a bad game. The gameplay loop is divided into three parts: combat, traversal, and puzzles. These in turn are subdivided too. I'll go over each one of them. Well, let's start with the combat. The combat is divided into melee combat, cover-based shooting or shooting, and stealth. Stealth is, well, basic as fuck. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's certainly better than the stealth in the previous games. In the previous games, stealth was either compulsory or just didn't have a lot of options. So it had a lot of waiting around for the AI to cross your path so you can get rid of them or just progress when they're not looking your way. It's there in Uncharted 4 too, but this game has more options for you to maneuver around the enemies, like hiding in beautiful tall grass and much larger areas. The grappling hook can also be used for stealth takedowns. And what I mean by this is that if you jump on an enemy while swinging off a grappling hook, it will take them down. You can also mark enemies, but not in higher difficulties. This game also introduces a detection system, which is both audio and visual cue when you are detected by the enemy. So how does it work? There is a meter which is initially white and it will fill if you are in the enemy's sight. When it is fully filled, it will turn yellow, which means they are investigating what they think they saw, and if you continue staying in their sight, they will spot you while the meter will turn orange and then they will try to kill you. You don't have weapons that can be used to take down enemies silently. The ways you can are pretty close to them. You can take them down from it or behind or sometimes right in front of them. That being said, there's still no way to influence the enemy's path unless you chuck a bomb or something like that, which spreads them out. Take Naughty Dog's other IP for example, and their best and my favorite IP, The Last of Us. The stealth in those games aren't super deep either, but it makes up for it by giving you more options with weapons and influencing the enemy AI. One simple example of that is to throw a brick or bottle to divert their attention.
The hell was that? I'll see what's up.
Skylar, we good?
I think adding a silent pistol would have been great. Take this one encounter in Scotland for example. The way the AIs are placed, they can easily flank and kill you in higher difficulties. So if you threw a bomb at them, they will spread out and you can take them down one by one. The problem is in the higher difficulties, you can easily get spotted and it will turn into a shootout and then you will die. So suppose we had a silent pistol. Something like this can happen.
Guy down over here. Safety's off.
Did you find something?
Across.
You see what happened? I had a series of close calls, but the silent pistol saved my ass in crushing difficulty. Yes, I died, but only because I have zero patience. So stealth is very basic, but still is very enjoyable, even though it leaves a lot to be desired. Melee combat is one aspect that I feel took several steps back rather than getting better like the rest of the aspects. The melee combat isn't terrible, it's just very disappointing. In Uncharted 1, Nathan can do combos. In Uncharted 2, Nathan can counter. In Uncharted 3, Nathan can counter but also use environmental items like a bottle to hit enemies. He can also toss back grenades, grab enemies and disarm them. In Uncharted 4, Nathan can punch, but he can't do any of the above mentioned stuff except disarm enemies. He can use the environment, but it seems to be a part of the animations instead of the player's input. Nathan can punch by pressing square, and if someone grabs him, you can spam the triangle button until he gets free. If you get overwhelmed, just roll away. What the fuck is this, Dark Souls? Like I said, the animations are great, the combat is fluid, but in the previous games, you're actually fighting. I just want to counter or dodge rather than roll away. This feels so awkward. Hell, you can parry, dodge, rave later in the game. I don't understand why they chose to simplify the melee combat instead of just adding this for the entire game. Also, I wish we can use the grappling hook in order to hit the enemies like in the multiplayer. The melee combat is underwhelming but serviceable. This is why I just prefer shooting enemies. Shooting is the best part of the combat. Not because you get to shoot at people, I mean yeah that's fun, but also because it is actually really good. Nathan can carry 3 weapons at a time. One of them is a special weapon like RPGs which are gold in color and of course explosive, 4 at a time though. You don't get a lot of special weapons ammo, so you have to get rid of them. Unless you have the infinite ammo enabled, which you can't do until you finish the game once. The other 2 are primary weapons, one of them are short barrel guns such as pistols and revolvers, and the other one are long range weapons such as rifles and shotguns. You can access them by pressing left or right on the D-pad, or while aiming you can switch between weapons by pressing square and slap the shoulders by pressing X. One thing I love about all these Uncharted games is the minimal HUD. You don't see Nathan's health, stamina or the map, only his weapons, ammo and explosive on the bottom left. Totally gives you that cinematic feel the developers were going for. Nathan's health or his luck regenerate if he is in cover or running away from enemies. He can also evade snipers by rolling. You can't upgrade Nathan or the weapons including the explosive. For example, you can reduce the weapon's weight, etc. But what makes up for this is having a wide variety of weapons. You have different kinds of handguns, shotguns, assault rifles. Uncharted 4 features 21 weapons. Each weapon has its pros and cons. It honestly depends on what suits you the best. For example, if you take 2 weapons, MP34A and XCR, they both seem very similar in terms of ammo and the looks of the reticle. But MP34A has less recoil than XCR. Another example are the M14 Custom and Mazur LDR. The former reloads faster and has less recoil than the latter. Despite the lack of choice regarding explosives, you will find plenty of propane tanks and red barrels to clear out multiple enemies. It's so fun experimenting with different weapons. This adds replay value. Now let's focus on the reticle, which is different for most weapons. I divide the reticle into 2 parts, the layer and the tiny dot. I mean, I call them that. You can call it whatever you want. So the layer is the most useful when you initially aim to show you where you are aiming. As soon as you shoot, the layer expands and becomes irrelevant. Hell, you can barely see it. The tiny dot becomes the focus. It shows you where to aim, but also shows you the recoil of the weapon you are using. For example, if you shoot and the tiny dot moves, you can shoot again. If the enemy is where that dot is, you will hit them and so on. Or you can wait for the aim to settle back again. The recoil is upwards or left or right, but never down. If you can keep track of the dot and the recoil, I think you can be more accurate. The layer is also useful when you blind fire, which is mostly when the enemy is way too close for your comfort, like Kratos is in God of War 2018. Or when you are in cover and the enemy is coming close but don't want to aim. You have hit markers like in the Last of Us series. If you hit an enemy, the reticle will turn into a white cross with a dot right in the center of it. Getting a headshot results in a different hit marker appearing. It looks like, I don't know what the fuck it looks like, circle with spikes, I don't know. Hit markers are a great way to communicate to let you know that this enemy is dead. Now move on to the next one. Another thing I wish they added is more blood. When I shoot at people, not like The Last of Us 2 obviously, the violence in that game is very important narratively, but it wouldn't make any sense having that in Uncharted 4. But I like a little blood. I mean, it has blood, but you barely see it. That's why Last of Us 1 and Part 2 are better. Shooting in this game is great, it feels smooth and fun as fuck. The traversal is divided into platforming and exploration. Platforming is significantly better than the previous games as it adds a few things like the grappling hook, pitan and the slides. Platforming in video games is something that I love dearly. It's one of the most clever ways to give the player a break from combat so it won't get repetitive. But platforming can't be too easy or too hard, just
perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
And I think Uncharted 4 does a better job in giving you more challenges regarding platforming than the previous games. In the previous game, you are mostly just doing this. Don't get me wrong, you still do that in Uncharted 4, but honestly the addition makes up for it. To me, platforming is all about skill and time. So when Nathan uses the grapple hook, I have to swing to gain momentum so I can jump at the right time. When Nathan uses his pitan, I have to jam that shit into those weird looking walls so he doesn't fall to his death. See, timing is very important, otherwise this will happen. Sometimes they mix things up and it's fucking fun. Take this one example. They want you to slide and jump at the right time so you can grapple and then jump. I'm going to talk about two of my many favorite platforming moments in the game. Another one is when the game is coming to its end. You find these slides continuously and you have to jump at the right time in the right direction.
Oh God, come on!
One thing I wish they did was to make those weird looking walls shorter in length and width so it would be more challenging. Platforming is fun in this game but still has very annoying sections that could have been improved. Exploration is another thing that Uncharted 4 adds to the series. It could be on foot or by a vehicle. The Madagascar section comes to my mind mostly because this is a vast area that you can explore by a jeep. It's beautiful as fuck. Before we discuss that, I want to say I love the driving in this game. It's incredibly smooth. This area has plenty of ruins to explore, some optional encounters. Honestly, the exploring is not that rewarding. There will be times when you will get a new weapon, but most of the time it's just treasures which don't even have any descriptions about them. They don't give you a map, so there's no way to know exactly where you are. What I do is follow the mountain if I just want to continue the story. Another chapter is just an island, and you explore the island by a boat, but mostly on foot. But there are certainly more explorable areas. You have some optional conversation in those areas which adds to the character and their interactions. I wish they added more rewards for exploring instead of useless treasures. The puzzles are divided into platforming puzzles and puzzles, non-platforming puzzles. Platforming puzzles are mixing platforming with puzzles. It's in the name, yo, that's it. One example is the sea chapter. You gotta dock your boat at a certain angle to get to a point in order to get a treasure. Scotland has a bunch of platforming puzzles. There's one more type of platforming puzzles which I like to call the Last of Us puzzles. Is where you locate the crates and move them to a particular position and use them to get to a point. Perhaps the most popular example of a platforming puzzle is the Clock Tower puzzle, which I will discuss later. Non-platforming puzzles are actually puzzles in this game. In the previous games, the answers are already given in the journal, so you just spend your time executing them, which are mostly boring as climbing sections. Clock Tower is one puzzle that falls into older games puzzles category. In Uncharted 4, when the journal is used, it's mostly just to access information. Like the one in Scotland, they show you how the puzzle should look at the end, which reminds me of an actual jigsaw puzzle box. But you need to use your brain in order to solve this puzzle. There's actually a trophy which wants you to solve this puzzle in fewer steps, and honestly, whenever I play the game, I try to solve the puzzle that way. It makes everything more challenging, and when you solve them, it's satisfying as fuck. My favorite one is in the chapter called At the Sea. So what you get is this puzzle with these rotating blocks which have sort of ball at the center, and it has a bunch of designs on it. The thing is, you need to match that block with the designs created by the sunlight. So the first layer is easy, the second layer is easy too, the third layer is where it gets tricky. The balls are rotating with the blocks, so now you have to calculate the distance of the block from the particular design and take notice of how the ball rotates and even which direction. When you make the changes, you make them in the way so that when you move the block, by the time you reach that design, your block is matching it. All of these components come together to work very well in levels, so let's talk about level designing in this game. The way Naughty Dog tells you where to go is quite simple. They show you by lighting the area, or it's mostly just a straight path.
I gotta get out of here.
You see how they lit up your path? Throughout the game, the levels are littered with artifacts you can read that help with world building. When I say littered, I literally mean it because there's just too much of it. The grappling hook and the slide are both very much present during some of the encounters in the game. It makes up for some of the coolest moments in the game. Nathan can aim while sliding or grappling, so when you hit an enemy while doing either of these two things, it feels very satisfying. They allow you to come in and out of stealth as you please during encounters, thanks to the grass and bigger areas. Actually, it's much easier to come in and out of stealth in lower difficulties. AI is programmed to flank you from every angle. A lot of covers are destructible, so you have to move a lot, which is great. That's what the developers want you to do. The problem is, in harder difficulties, Nathan loses his health fast, and like I mentioned, in order to regenerate his health, which takes a lot of time, you either run away or get behind a cover. But the AI is still flanking you and you end up dying. This is frustrating. The AI in Uncharted sure is very aggressive, but they are very unpredictable. There will be times they will see you even peeking from the cover, but at the same time, you can do this. Upon that, the AI companion is useless, more so in the highest difficulty. Look, I have been playing a lot of From Software games lately, like Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, so I don't mind challenges in games. When I die in Souls games, it doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't feel undeserved. When I die in these games, I learn from my mistakes. I learn the boss's patterns and come back determined to defeat the boss. And when I do that, it's a very satisfying experience. Crushing in Uncharted 4 is not. I dread the next encounter. The best way to play Uncharted is in moderate difficulty. You tell me, which one do you think is more fun? Most of the levels, chapters in this game involve shooting, platforming and sometimes puzzles. The opening level and the prologue both serve as a good introduction to the mechanics of the game for both newcomers and veterans, like the climbing, the introduction of the grappling hook, swimming, sliding down, shooting, taking cover and stealth. However, chapter 2, called Infernal Place, also seems like a long-ass tutorial for the player to get used to the climbing section. I understand this chapter is to show you how Sam died and the history between Rafe and the brothers, but honestly, it's just a slog to go through it. It's one example of why I feel this game has pacing problems. A lot of people call the next chapter very boring and unnecessary, but they don't get it. That's exactly the point. Nathan feels the same. This is one of the few, and by few I mean few times the gameplay works alongside the plot to put you into Nathan's shoes. Otherwise the gameplay and the story rarely meet it with each other. The next chapter serves as a nostalgia chapter. You can interact with artifacts from the previous games as you explore Nathan's house. Chapter 5 is again one of the few chapters where the story and the gameplay meets. Sam is telling Nathan his bullshit story, but instead of just narrating this false tale, we actually get to experience it, putting the player in the unique position as both Sam and Nathan, storyteller and listener. I don't know about you, but I was very shocked when Nathan revealed the truth about this. Damn it, Naughty Dog! The next two chapters are a fun heist chapter which ends with a lot of shooting. Chapter 8 and 9 are set in Scotland. Chapter 2 is set on an island. Chapter 13 to 15 and 17 are set in Libertalia. Chapter 16 is a flashback. Chapter 18 to 22 are set in New Devon. All of these chapters provide a good balance of very good and some of the worst platforming. Most of them have very slow meandering progression. However, most of these chapters feature interesting combat sections with optional stealth. In chapter 22, after a few boring ass platforming moments to few of my favorite platforming moments, Naughty Dog says fuck it and gives you a sword fight. With every phase, it gets more intense with this sexy ass song playing in the background. All these chapters, like chapter 13 Marooned, have a lot of walking sections. Now, I don't really mind walking in games, believe me, I like Last of Us games, but the only thing I'm doing is walking. Again, comparing this game to the Last of Us games, you are not really just walking, you are exploring to get collectibles, but also you have to collect resources like bandages and alcohols, etc. and pills that directly impact the gameplay. Here, there is nothing. You just walk. Even if there is platforming, there are still very boring climbing sections. In the case for chapter 13, the whole thing is boring and I rarely felt engaged until the encounter. The only exception is chapter 14, it's in Libertalia. Nathan and Sam just found the colony so you can explore. Sure, there still aren't a lot of things, but it has a sense of mystery and good optional interactions, which is far more rewarding than useless treasures. Chapter 10 is better than the other chapters as it has exploration, so if you don't want to explore, you can continue with the story instead of being forced to do it. Epilogue is fine, short and sweet. I wish instead of having such long, boring sequences, they would make it more interesting, particularly the platforming. Because I'm playing an Uncharted game for this. Not for this. These boring areas also hinder the pacing of the game. Well, let's talk about the peak Uncharted. This chapter is perfect. I have watched plenty of action movies and some of them are really good. Most of them have great action sequences. Anyways, out of all of them, the chase sequence from Uncharted 4 is the one I remember the most. Because of two reasons. Number one is the most obvious one, interactivity. Number two is the build-up. Nathan and Sully reach the tower, which is in the middle of a busy market. And what makes this more interesting is that you can interact with the locals, like buy an apple, etc. Then they gain entry to the tower, where you get a platforming puzzle to solve. It's pretty fun, you still mash the button a lot, but occasionally it requires timing. And if you reach the top of the tower, you can see the whole level from there. Anyways, after solving it, you get a bunch of interesting platforming quick time events. You gotta solve another puzzle, which is quite interesting. You need to connect the patterns and I like it. And then after solving that, Rafe calls Nathan to tell that he's tracking him and Sam. Nathan and Sully try to reach their car, but they get ambushed by the shoreline soldiers who destroy the market, and upon that they bring this big ass crazy truck which is constantly shooting at them. After fighting through a bunch of soldiers, they make it to their car. We, along with Nathan and Sully, think we got rid of the truck, but
surprise, motherfucker!
And then you gotta make choices regarding which turns to take, all the while getting shot at. This is very fast paced and you will have to make very sharp turns while speeding, so there is a high chance you will drift. I don't know about you, but I felt like drifting. It's on a hill, we are going down the hill. So whatever you choose, all turns lead to this road. The truck is still following us, but we do get rid of it, and after doing some drifting and finally thinking we got rid of it, it still found us. So in our last effort of ditching it, we jump off the rooftops of small houses and finally we reach the tower Sam was in. Unfortunately, he's being chased by shoreline soldiers, so we follow them. We are running out of road. Nathan has a brilliant idea to grapple from the truck. So here I am with Nathan being dragged by a truck and getting shot at from all directions. And you can shoot too. So after blowing up a car, which is fucking awesome, I climb onto the truck to beat the shit out of some people, shoot some people, blow up some cars, but Naughty Dog wants you to keep moving, and they do that by restrictable covers and making sure the vehicle you are in catches fire and explodes. So when my truck is about to catch fire, I jump on another car while I see the truck blowing up. This particular section is low. You fight for control of the truck and repeat this until you destroy 3 trucks. If you don't, the cars will keep respawning. You can get rid of the bikes and cars by ramming them or shooting at them while dragging behind the trucks. Then Nathan finally reaches Sam, and like always, these brothers are bickering. Naughty Dog doesn't want you to chill. No breaks during the sequence as the car sets on fire. As we get out, we have to shoot some enemies, but the truck is there too. Sam saves our ass. We got onto the motorcycle, start shooting this motherfucker because he's right up our ass, and we finally defeat the truck. All the while, this sexy ass song is playing in the background. We go back to our hotel where we find Elena waiting. Naughty Dog just gave us a ride on the best roller coaster ever, but they didn't tell you at the end it comes crashing down. Absolutely beautiful. The build up and the crash at the end is genius. From doing platforming puzzles to jumping across cars, trucks while they are in motion and you're getting shot at. Every time I play this part, I feel like I'm experiencing it for the first time, and I will never get bored of it. Never. Uncharted series is obviously known for its cinematic presentation and great set pieces. Uncharted 4 has few of my favorite set pieces. The chase sequence, when Nathan and Sam gets ambushed on the way to New Devon. Uncharted 4 is a great game and a great conclusion to Nathan and Elena's adventures. But this is not the end for Uncharted series. The development of Uncharted The Lost Legacy began right after the release of Uncharted 4 in May 2016. Kurt Margenau and Sean Askezy, I'm sorry if I pronounced his last name wrong, were chosen to lead development as game director and creative director respectively. The studio were divided into two teams. One team started working on Lost Legacy and the other on my favorite game sequel, The Last of Us Part 2. The team working on Lost Legacy initially contemplated creating Uncharted 5, but then later opted to work on creating a more condensed story for a sooner release. It is described as longer than Left Behind, The Last of Us DLC, but shorter than Uncharted 4. Lost Legacy released on August 22nd, 2017. I gotta say, as an Indian, I was very much impressed by the level of detail and research they put into this game, and to do that within a year is simply amazing. A lot of hard work and passion went into making this game. Let's talk about the gameplay first. The gameplay didn't really change much. It's very similar to Uncharted 4 with very few changes. Again, I'm playing on PS4 Pro. The resolution is roughly 1440p with 30 FPS. The visuals have slightly improved. Naughty Dog actually fixed the problems I had with the lighting in the previous game. The character models are great. I think they're a bit better than Uncharted 4. Unlike Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy takes place at one place, India. Mostly in the wild jungles of Western Ghat and the sacred lost city of Bilor. Some of the takedown animations have been changed to better suit Chloe. They're still very fluid and fit her style. The sound design, gameplay modifiers, etc. are basically the same as Uncharted 4. Music is again scored by Henry Jackman. I absolutely love it. The soundtrack still makes you feel like you are in an action movie but with an Indian twist. It sounds like home. My favorite songs are Chloe Fraser, The Western Cars and The Insurgency. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. The gameplay loop remains mostly the same, with only few differences under stealth, shooting, exploration and puzzles. Well, stealth, they added the silent pistol. Finally, took them 4 games. Stealth is still very basic. You can't influence the AI's path unless you chuck a bomb or something. But with the addition of silent pistols, you can at least do something, rather than just waiting around for the AI to cross your path. Shooting is exactly the same. You can't upgrade Chloe or the weapons, but yet again, weapons variety saves the day. Some weapons written from Uncharted 4 like Mazur LDR and Para 45, etc. But Naughty Dog added a few new weapons too, like the silenced pistol, obviously, and Arrowhead A3C, etc. Let's compare Mazur LDR with Harbinger Sniper, a new addition to Lost Legacy. The latter reloads faster than the former. Uncharted Lost Legacy is more explorable than Uncharted 4, with the most popular example being Chapter 4, the Western Ghats. I feel like this was sort of an experiment for the open world section in The Last of Us Part 2. They both are way too similar. However, the open world section in this game has a much larger area. In order to traverse around, Chloe is provided with a map. To get started, you have to first visit the tall tower in the middle of the area and climb it. There, Chloe finds 4 doors that lead you to ruins. 3 of them are part of the story, and the other one is an optional area. You can visit them in any order. In this section, you'll find Hoysala tokens. There are 11 of them scattered across the area. If you collected all of them, you'll get the Queen's Bracelet, a powerful item that resonates whenever it is in close proximity to another treasure.
You fucking...
But there are good optional conversations and some really good encounters. I personally don't like this area. Lost Legacy has the best puzzle in the series, and it has one of my favorite puzzles in all games. Puzzles are much more interesting in this game than even Uncharted 4. One of my favorite ones is in the Western Ghats area. You can't miss it because it is a part of the story. It's a jumping puzzle that requires you to use your brain. So Chloe has to progress to the other side without getting hit by the statue's axe. Keep in mind, these statues move as Chloe makes a move. Now there are 3 parts of this puzzle, and it gets harder with each part. In the first part, you have 1 statue, so it's pretty easy. In the second part, you have 3 statues. And the last part, you have 6 statues. This game doesn't have memorable set pieces like the previous games, except if you count the last chapter of the game. To be honest, I think this game is the weakest in the series regarding set pieces, excluding the first Uncharted. It's literally like Uncharted 4, so it has the same problems, except it has a silenced pistol, and believe me, it's a game changer if you choose to use it. I played both games back to back in crushing difficulty. I died a lot in Lost Legacy, and I was frustrated, but not as much as I was playing Uncharted 4. I was share playing with my best friend, and if you ask him, he would tell you that I lost my fucking mind. Let's talk about the story of the game. Uncharted Lost Legacy breaks the tradition of not opening with a quote or an action sequence. At first, I didn't like it, but then I realized that it is good. This game features characters from the previous games who have their own identity. Chloe is different from Nathan, and the opening emphasizes that. The dialogues are well written. The performances are great, except the Indian girl at the store. She sounds like an American trying to do an Indian accent, and it's not good. I'm an Indian girl, born in India, raised in India. Do I sound like her?
800 rupees, please.
Claudia Black as Chloe, Laura Bailey as Nadine, Troy Baker as Sam, Usman Alai as Asad. Chloe and Nadine are both very headstrong, take charge kind of girls, so the dynamic is funny. Chloe is spontaneous and impulsive, whereas Nadine is structured and disciplined. It's fun to see who wins. Nadine, however, takes a step back if they are arguing because, well, it's Chloe's gig, so she has to follow orders. Following the events of Uncharted 4, Nadine lost the ownership of Shoreline, and now she has no choice but to follow Chloe, who is after the tusk of Ganesh. Finding the tusk will get her back Shoreline, her father's company. Both Chloe and Nadine are here because of their fathers. I'm glad they explored Chloe's backstory. She's one of my favorite supporting characters in the series. Her father was an archaeologist who spent his whole life looking for the tusk of Ganesh. He sacrificed so much, even pushed his family away. Then he was murdered by some bandits. At the start of the game, both Chloe and Nadine have a very professional relationship, but soon they develop a friendship. The interactions are actually very hilarious.
Watch out for the axe! Did I get you? No. Alright, what the hell is that thing you keep playing with?
It's my stress toy.
You handled yourself on, all things considered.
What things are those?
No real combat training.
Ah.
Slightly impulsive. Run around the field like a maniac. Need to learn what short, controlled burst means.
Right.
And lost. Wearing red in a jungle combat scenario. I mean, seriously.
You know, it's not every day you get to see a totally hidden city that nobody else has seen for centuries.
Apart from Asav.
Apart from Asad.
And a few of his men.
And a few of his men.
You ready?
You just totally crushed that moment. You know that, right? Yeah, I'm ready.
Like the Uncharted series is known for being light-hearted, not saying it can't get serious, but holy shit, these two just makes me laugh my ass off. The game's antagonist is Asad.
Handsome.
If you're into psychopaths.
Nobody's perfect.
He is someone who has the charisma and belief in his people to rise up and lead a revolution of sorts. And he's fine. But he beats the shit out of Chloe and Nadine. Nobody gives a fuck about that, I guess. It only matters when a woman beats the shit out of a man. Sam is back. He was secretly working with Chloe, and she was the one who sent him as an expert to Asaf to distract him. And of course, we know the history between Nadine and Sam, and for that reason, Chloe doesn't tell Nadine about him, so she gets pretty pissed off.
Don't hold back or anything.
Oh, I did.
But soon they make amends. It's pretty sweet. They save an elephant calf, they ride it, it's a genuine moment.
You're a selfish dickhead.
Yeah. You're right. I am a selfish dickhead.
Yeah. It's good to hear you say it.
Well, did you hear that, Dad? Did get something from you after all.
What happened with your father?
He was the guy that couldn't walk away. The Ministry of Culture offered to finance one more of his expeditions, because this time he said he was onto something big. He was always onto something big. But bandits raided his camp and, local authorities found him weeks later. And this stupid thing is all I have left of him.
I'm sorry.
Oh, hey. He certainly made his choice.
Now you guys must be like, you had problems with Elena forgiving Nathan after talking once, but you are fine with this. Well, Elena and Nathan knew each other for years. They were married when he lied to her. Nadine and Chloe just started working together and it's a budding friendship. If you can't see the difference, I don't know what to tell you. Also, Chloe doesn't straight up lie, she just doesn't mention Sam.
I just left out the part about Sam.
Unlike Nathan and Joel. They discover Belor.
Hello, Belor.
Hoysala's empire's hidden capital city. There they come face to face against Asaf. He finally figures out the truth about Sam. Asaf gets a tusk and leaves them to die, but they escape. Then we get to see Nadine and Chloe bully Sam. It's hilarious, it's mostly Nadine though.
Got it.
Come on up.
Go ahead, Sam. Age before beauty.
Oh, you're too kind.
No, she's just worried I'd kick it over and leave you down there. It's a better idea.
What are you?
Don't move.
Ow, come on. Hey.
I said don't move.
Unbelievable.
We also see Nadine relax after being with Chloe for such a long time. At the start, she just wants to get the work done, but at the end, she's like,
What the hell was that? I thought you were a professional.
Oh, you should relax. You'll live longer.
A lot of playing, guys. Like I said, there's over a couple dozen guys in there.
Relax. You'll live longer.
I am so proud.
What just happened?
Asaf traces us to Orca, Nadine's former lieutenant, who now runs Shoreline, which pisses her off.
You cool?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Because I need you to be cool.
I'm cool.
All right, ladies. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take the guy on the right. You two go ahead and just...
Chloe, Nadine and Sam take down Orca's helicopter and learn that Asaf traded the tusk for a bomb he plans to detonate in the capital with the hopes of triggering a civil war. Orca pulls a gun on Nadine, but Sam saves her, allowing her to shoot Orca.
Nice shot.
Thanks.
Pattern's a little wide. You
Get
could...
the hell off me.
Yep. All right.
Commanding a jeep, the three catch up to the train carrying the bomb. The women board the train and fight through Asaf's men. Chloe and Sam switches the track, redirecting the train away from the city. Chloe and Nadine fight Asaf, whose leg becomes trapped under the bomb. They jump to safety before the train falls from a collapsed bridge and explodes, killing Asaf. Chloe and Nadine decide to partner up.
Know of any selfish dickheads who might be in need of a partner? Not you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I only work with professionals.
While Sam reacts with horror at their intentions to donate the valuable tusk to the Ministry of Culture.
Oh my God, you're serious.
It was a very enjoyable story, a story about friendship and culture. As an Indian, I love this game a lot. Seeing a game from one of my favorite series set in my country, developed by my favorite game developer, was beyond my wildest dreams. Representation will always matter. Even the smallest thing can impact people. Thank you, Naughty Dog. playing this game with my very religious mother who doesn't play games was an experience I will never forget. She was amazed by the details and research put into it, and she's waiting for another Lost Legacy. I would love to see Chloe and Nadine together again. Both of these Uncharted games feature the same multiplayer. It's a pretty fun MP. I do like it a lot, not as much as Factions though. If you guys want me to make a video on it, let me know. Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy are not masterpieces. However, they're still great games that I love with all my heart. And if Naughty Dog is planning a new Uncharted game, I'll buy it day one, no doubt. So there are some changes made in the schedule. I hope you guys don't have any problem with it and join me on this journey. I don't know how much time each video will take to prepare, but I'm very determined to follow through. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next video.
Guns close doors to the system, yeah. When we say we're not with them, we solid and we don't need to kick them. This is no south, east and western. Yeah, guns close doors to the system.